Hello YouTube, I'm back with the next Yu-Gi-Oh review, and since I'm done with all the model kits that I have, I've started to review the decks that have been released that I own. I'm actually going to review two decks today, Starter Deck Yugi and Starter Deck Kaiba, mostly because you can kind of put them together because they have a lot of the same cards. Not necessarily exactly the same card, but some of the cards that are kind of the same level, like kind of junky, and some that are actually kind of okay, and some are like... And obviously both of them have the ultra rare card here, and a little bit of nostalgia as well, so why not? So we'll go with Starter Deck Yugi first. As you can see, this is the first print of the Dark Magician, at least in the trading card game. At least in this artwork anyway, because I mean, Legend of the Blue Eyes has a different artwork, but it's not the same thing. You'd have to actually wait for the tins. The tins are the only place you could have gotten this artwork. Although it's gotten reprinted recently with the new starter decks that have just come out. Or the legendary decks. I think those have them in there. This is also just to go with, you know, so you can identify which deck I'm reviewing first, because otherwise you may not be able to tell directly. But this isn't a bad deck. I mean, these are the decks that are very primitive. They're, like, obviously, like the first trading card game starter decks ever, and I would think this is definitely something you should start with if you're just going to get into the game. They have a lot of basic rules in here. I mean, if you look through the list, they have a lot of they also have a lot of Yugi's iconic monsters. So like Summon Skull here. This is also, I think, the first printing of Soul Exchange, and it's actually a holofoil card. So it's funny because Yugi never actually used Soul Exchange. In fact, a lot of the cards he never used. But it also has a lot of cards that are powerful and actually banned nowadays. But I mean, these decks wouldn't be competitive anyways. Even if you had Change of Heart, you're not likely going to inherit Change of Heart. So the Kaiba deck does not have this card, so which is kind of interesting. It's almost like they were kind of designed to almost compete against each other, so you could like buy two of them and actually, you know, actually have a fun duel. But you'll have to learn the game first. This one does have Wabaku though, so you know the cards are totally crappy, and I know there are a whole bunch of like junky normal monsters in here, as I said earlier. But it's not that bad. I mean, there are some relatively strong monsters at level 4. Here's a man-eating treasure chest here, so if I get a good shot of this here. Back up a little bit. Yeah, it's got 1600 attack and 1000 defense, so it's not terrible. You also have Cursor Dragon, which Yugi did use in Duelist Kingdom. In fact, a lot of these cards are from Duelist Kingdom. So, see, I don't know. You're not going to be able to see it all that well. Here we go. There's a little bit better. But a lot of them do have some of the same cards. I mean, here's one of the very few effect monsters in this starter deck. So it's one of the very few, and this is also the only place you could get. So I'm pretty sure this is the only place you can get the Book of Sacred Arts without the quill, because the one that's recently Legend of Blue Eyes has the quill. So it's kind of a little noteworthy thing there. And this is also the first print of Card Destruction too, at least in the trading card game. I think this is why a lot of these cards are holofoils, because this is like their first time being printed officially as actual cards. But they do have some cards. I mean, this isn't a bad deck. It's got some cards to help out. I mean, this is pretty well somewhat meant to counter each other. It has some defensive monsters as well. You got Mystical Elf, which Yugi did use in the show. Though the weird thing is, regarding Mystical Elf, its attack is less than Giant Soldier Stone, which is 1300, so you can find it in here. This is also Neo the Magic Swordsman is probably the strongest level 4 monster in this deck. But let's see, where is the Giant Soldier Stone? Here it is. It's crazy. It's a level 3 monster, but it has more attack points than Mystical Elf. It doesn't make any sense. But they did it, and it's not a bad monster. I mean, I think in some sense this is somewhat better than the Kaiba deck, because you got other ways to actually bring out the Dark Magician. As well as you have a high level 6 monster like Summon Skull. Mine's missing Dome of the Angel of Silence, but I think it's only going to slow you down further. It's a janky level 5 Dark Fairy type monster. No effect whatsoever. It's a complete normal monster. It's like complete garbage anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, it's got some of the classic cards like Trap Hole as well. So, I mean, you're totally going to have at least some defense. Not like it gave you 40 effect monsters, and here's the other. This is actually common. This is actually in both starter decks. I've just checked earlier, so that's only actually. This is why this deck is a little more. It's a lot more primitive, but you'll actually learn much. In fact, incidentally, most of the monsters in this are flip effect monsters. Stern Mystic is another flip effect monster. Wall of Illusion is the only one that is not, but they also have Monster Reborn, so this is also... If you have a deck built, you might be better off kind of getting the cards just for the actual, like, cards like Monster Reborn, like all the staples and stuff like that, but... I think that's kind of a waste of money, especially since the cards are going to be probably cheaper to actually get online. Or from, like, a trade or something like that. This is definitely not a bad deck. I mean, if you're just learning, I would start this way. I mean, yeah, there are new ones that are probably a little more up to date, but they have they have things like, even the Starter Deck Joey, which I'm going to probably review later, actually has more than you're probably going to be ready for at the time you get them. So these are definitely the way to start. You can always expand to get Joey later, especially if you're a fan of the show. He's got his two fusion monsters that actually make an appearance throughout the series are actually included in there. So I guess that's all about to say about the Starter Deck Yugi. Here's Starter Deck Kaiba. Just of note, of course, that it has the Blue Eyes White Dragon in the artwork. That's probably one of my favorites, and it's also the one used that Kaiba has. But there's only one Blue Eyes in this entirely. So, and it's still the strongest normal monster in the game. No, there are no monsters that are actually stronger than Blue Eyes White Dragon, even to this day. Never mind any effects, any additional bonuses you apply. It beats the Dark Magician. I think the closest we have, is Rabid Dragon, which I think is 2950 attack. It's either that or Spiral Serpent, which is 2900 attack. It's really close, but not there yet. This deck does have other support, but it has a lot of janky cards in here, like, I don't know, Rude Kaiser, I guess, which is, for a starter deck of this era, it's not bad. In today's game, forget about it. You're not going to get a monster out like that right away. And like the Yugi deck, which had Claw Reacher, which has a very similar weak normal monster in this. This is like they're trying to balance them out. Say, okay, let's make them as close to each other as possible. This is also, you may have noticed, I didn't put in any spell cards to show, but these are actually the later printing because the original ones had magic card on them. Although, by the way, if you're actually new to the game going, what's the difference between a magic card and a spell card? Nothing. They just changed it because, as I recall, it was Magic the Gathering said, hey, we got magic cards already. You can't do that. And Konami basically said, okay, we'll change them. And then after Magician's Force, all cards became spell cards. And they've been that way ever since. But yeah, a lot of the cards in here are the same. They both have, this is also the print of Lord of D. This is a foil version, it's a foil card, as well as the Flute of Summoning Dragon. And then again, like the Starter Deck Yugi, they all have, these are all basically more or less cards straight from the Duelist Kingdom era. Although Kaiba had 3 Blue Eyes. I mean, yeah, there's some cards, there's actually multiple. This has Blue Eyes White Dragon, sure, but it has a lot of janky monsters that you're probably never going to see the light of day, ever, because they're just too weak. I mean, it might be used by a kid that actually doesn't really know any better. This is also the one where they actually have an error with D-Spell. I don't know if I didn't show you any in the actual Yugi deck, but this one actually has a little slight spelling error. No pun intended, of course. Where the S in spell should actually be like the word D and D. So, the D part of D spell. It's mostly kind of minor noteworthiness. That's the only place you're going to find it with that, and they're all like that, so. But it's not bad. I mean, you got Sword Stalker as well, which is probably one of the better monsters in this starter deck. Also used by Kaiba and Duelist Kingdom, kind of throughout the series. But just to point out, yes, Trap Master is in both. There it is. You're probably not going to be able to tell, because I mean, this quality here is probably not very good. But if you buy the deck, which is probably a bit pricier now, even though it's pretty dated, and a lot of the cards you could probably build the deck for probably cheaper. But yeah, you got his classic Legend in here too, and that's probably the best, one of the best level 4 monsters in this starter deck. This is definitely, both these are definitely something I would recommend if you're just going to start out the game. Yeah, they'll be a little pricier, but they're also a lot more primitive. You'll actually get used to the game. You don't have many variables to work with. No fusion monsters, no ritual monsters, no synchro, exceeds, no pendulum. I know a lot of those are going to fly right by your head if you were totally new to the game. But this is also in case you're a fan of the show. I mean, All the cards are from the are used by them. Some are not. But I mean, even Hitotsuki Giant makes an appearance in this too. So. But again, this isn't really. I mean, oddly enough, one of the cards included in this, Kaiba would use in Season 4, Season 3, the Wicked Worm Beast. It would actually be set, and then later destroyed. It was in his match against Lecter, I think, against the Big Five. So, but it's not that great of a card. I mean, your only option is basically to set it. It's otherwise basically a spirit monster without actually being a spirit monster. Kind of the spirit monster before they existed in Legacy of Darkness. But it's not terrible. It'll be good to start off the game, especially since it's got cards like that are kind of subpar, like Fisher. Not terrible. Not great either. But they're pretty well identical. So if you buy both of them, you're gonna find there's very similar cards in this. But definitely recommended if you're actually just starting out with the game. It's going to probably be a little pricier nowadays because they're pretty rare to get. But you maybe have better luck actually just buying all the cards individually, but that would require you knowing what's in them. This will guarantee you'll get all of them. You'll get Blue Eyes. It'll be your first copy ever if you're just starting out with the game. But yeah, that's my review on Starter Deck Yugi and Starter Deck Kaiba. Thanks for watching.